and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who always makes the playoffs year in, year out. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I don't need to bounce back. I won't be looking to compete this year.
No.
I always make it in.
But there are plenty of teams that that description does fit. That description does fit.
It does indeed. Hello, my friend.
Hello. So we're here to preview Major League Soccer 2019 Eastern Conference. And if you've ever heard a preview episode of the Total Soccer Show, you'll know how we do it.
Buckle up.
Buckle up. We're not going to tell you which teams will make the playoffs. We're not going to tell you who's going to win MLS Cup, because honestly, when people tell you that, they're mostly guessing.
Yep.
We're going to give you very specific predictions. So specific they might even be useless. I would argue so specific they're of great use.
I would agree with that. I only listened to like the first 4 of our show from last year. I do plan to do something with that before the season starts. We were doing pretty well. I have to say. I said Joseph Martinez would be Golden Boot winner.
Yeah.
That was one of my predictions. You predicted...
These were recorded in December 2018. Right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't have them all in front of me. I have 2. You predicted that Alexander Katai would outperform David Accam for the Chicago Fire. You were very correct on that one. So we were off to a decent start. Yeah. I don't know how it's going to finish out.
I'd say don't listen and quit while you're ahead.
All right. I'm fine with that. That works for me.
Are you ready for this year's then? Are you ready for 2019?
Let's do it.
We're going to go alphabetical order in the Eastern Conference. Obviously, Western Conference is going to be a whole other episode, probably tomorrow. Alphabetically, I'm going first. It's Atlanta United.
Alrighty.
Atlanta United, your MLS Cup champions.
View behind the curtain here is that we did manage to rotate. Last year I did Atlanta, so we are kind of flipping it around.
Yeah.
But when we chose to do these previews, we sort of have this roughly standard format. And I turned to Daryl and said, do you want to start off? And you did Atlanta. Yes.
I was like, AFC Bournemouth. No, Atlanta. Perfect. Okay. Here's the big stuff with Atlanta United before I get to my predictions. The obvious changes. Tata Martino out. Frank de Boer in.
Yeah. I have questions.
Miguel Almiron out. Gonzalo, quote-unquote, Pity Martinez in.
I have questions.
Less big but kind of important. Greg Garza out. Brek Shea kind of in.
I have lots of questions.
There's lots to get into.
Were they just like, we need a tattooed left back who can also play left wing back?
Yeah.
Let's just get Brek Shea. Okay.
I think it's more we need a good excuse to someone we can pick George Bello ahead of.
Okay.
So lots to get into in terms of playing style and what's going to change. But my big prediction is that Pity Martinez, the replacement playmaker, will lead the league in key passes.
Okay.
So first question, do you know what a key pass is? Because I had to double check and look it up.
It's the one that gets a different color than other passes when you're looking at the breakdown.
They are would-be assists.
Okay.
So they're essentially passes that create a goal-scoring opportunity. Right?
Okay, so even if it's not scored, it should have been scored, so it counts as a key pass.
And to give you a frame of reference...
May I ask a quick question before you give me a frame of reference?
Of course.
Is an assist a key pass, or is an assist an assist?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
That's a question for a statistician.
All right.
I'm going to say it should be.
I'm going to guess it's an assist. I'm going to guess it doesn't count, which is...
Like, it has to be one thing or the other.
I'm assuming so, but who knows? Either way, I was just curious for my own edification. Get to your predicting.
So to give you the numbers, in 2018, the key pass leader in Major League Soccer was Diego Valeri, 119. Then Maxi Morales with 111. And Nico Ladero with 101. Okay. So basically, you got to be South American to make the most key passes in Major League Soccer. If you've ever seen Pity Martinez play, you'll know why I think this. Because his game, and I think this is the important part, because I want to compare him with Miguel Almiron. Think of Almiron, you think of bursting away at pace, dribbling away from people, and it's all about sort of getting in behind, right? Ask Huddersfield Town.
You've answered my question that I had, but I was like, I think I can figure it out, but thank you for answering it anyway, which was, I was surprised to hear that Almiron wasn't further up that key pass list, but yes, that absolutely makes sense. If he's turning and playing as fast as he can, that might not necessarily lead to too many like half chances.
He didn't even have the most assists to Joseph Martinez last year. That went to, I believe, Julian Gressel.
Okay.
How about that?
Decent.
Pity Martinez will lead the league in key passes because that's the best part of his game. If you watch him, he's a dribbler. He'll hold on to the ball. He'll do a few moves, throw you off. But all the time, he's not really thinking about dribbling in behind. he's looking for the pass that no one else has seen. And so many of the passes that I saw, I watched a lot of his River Plate highlights, basically. So many of them are surprise through balls, like chips over the top of defenders who didn't know it was coming, or like weird little reverse passes that no one saw come in. I think the best example that I think you might have seen is in the first leg of the Copa Libertadores final. Do you remember River conceded, but then they immediately came back and scored like a minute later from kickoff?
Yeah.
It was Pity Martinez who just got the ball from kickoff, drove up the middle, and then released this pass through the middle of the defence. And the Boca defence were like, what? You can't do that straight from kickoff. We weren't expecting that.
So that all makes sense why you would say that this is going to happen. My question for you is, given what you saw in the CONCACAF Champions League, that didn't give you any concern about this prediction?
Well, he created goal-scoring opportunities in the CONCACAF Champions League. They just didn't score that many. So you'll notice I haven't gone with Pity Martinez will lead the league in assists. So this all goes to the other big change is Tata Martino out, Frank de Boer in. It's a whole different playing style, right? Tata Martino was either A, press high, then go at them quickly, which creates sort of high-quality scoring chances, right? Especially when it's Almiron running at you after the turnover. Or they would sit a little deeper, break on the counter, which creates high-quality scoring chances. A Frank de Boer team, we've seen this with Crystal Palace, with Inter, and in that first CONCACAF Champions League
game.
Gets
Frank de Boer fired?
Often gets Frank de Boer fired because it's a slower possession game. It's about moving the ball around. In my opinion, it gives the opposition time to get set, get numbers behind the ball, right? So Pity Martinez will be important because he'll be the one who, when you're facing massed ranks and you're moving the ball around and you're trying to create something, he still will find those little gaps to maybe thread Joseph Martinez in, but they're not going to be quite as high quality chances as when you're hitting someone on the counter at pace. Do you remember how many Martinez goals were him sort of in behind the defence?
Yeah.
I think it's just going to be lower quality chances this year.
Okay, that's interesting because I would say that I've been wondering about Atlanta United myself with Frank de Boer, not Ronald de Boer. I always want to say it's Ronald de Boer. And one thing I was trying to...
For some reason, they look very similar.
For some reason. And spoiler alert for what's to come, I'm previewing Toronto. Yeah. And I was trying to figure out what really went wrong with Toronto, and I saw one statistical breakdown pointing out that they had, I think, more possession than they did the year before when they were MLS champions. But obviously that didn't work so well. And they created more goal-scoring opportunities. It's just they were lower percentage and didn't take them as well. And I think a big part of that is because they were playing against teams that were now playing against the champions, so they bunkered a little bit more of the opposition. They sat back, they absorbed pressure, and they frustrated Toronto. So I do think there's a chance, though, that if it's Atlanta and you're playing against teams now who are reacting to playing the champions and they're going to want to be a bunkered defense, that maybe slowing it down and having Pity Martinez picking those spots and finding those, probing for vulnerabilities, maybe that does suit them a little bit more this season, but not last season.
And I guess the big question is, this is why it's a preview. It just depends how it goes, right?
Exactly.
I would argue in the positive column that the level of quality of player that De Boer is working with Atlanta relative to the rest of the league, like the opposition they'll face, is higher with Atlanta United than it was with Crystal Palace, who are, they're not in the top end of the Premier League, and higher than with Inter, because Inter weren't a great team at that time, and there's a lot of teams like Juve, for example, were better than them. I think this slow possession type thing, it might work given the high quality of player that Atlanta have got relative to other MLS teams.
Yeah, would you like an actual physical explanation of that or evidence for that?
I'll take one.
Matt Doyle wrote a piece today that was a reason why your team will win the Supporter Shield and a reason why they won't. Yeah. And his point with Atlanta was that if you go by their transfer market valuation, which I think he refers to as a blunt object, they are literally double.
Like James Bond.
Yes. Their valuation is literally double the next team. I forget who it was, but that shows you how much talent and how much, I guess, estimated talent, if your transfer market, Atlanta and Frank de Boer are working with.
That makes sense. Will you permit me a second?
Absolutely.
A second prediction.
I mean, it wouldn't be very specific predictions, one each, if Daryl didn't make several per team.
The defense is going to get rearranged.
Okay.
So it's already been rearranged by De Boer. And so in that CONCACAF Champions League game, which they lost 3-1, didn't look good, they had Miles Robinson as the centre-back in a back three, Michael Parkhurst out on the right, and Gonzalez Perez on the left. And Michael Parkhurst was the absolute man in the centre of a back three last year. I can't see a season I can't see the season happening without him getting back to that position.
Yeah,
it just made so much sense.
I remember how lights out he was, and LGP. That's a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, by all accounts, I did not watch the Atlanta CONCACAF Champions League game, but even LGP looked apparently very vulnerable.
He was at fault
shaky
for the first goal.
Yeah, and I do wonder if maybe some of that reorganization is to blame for that back line not looking nearly as cohesive.
I think it really is. Yeah, I think they just look more exposed, more spread out as well. It didn't quite work. Here's my guess for how their back line is going to end up. Michael Parkhurst in the middle, obviously. LGP to the right. To the left centre-back, Florentin Pogba.
Ooh.
I think people have forgotten about that signing.
Announced by Paul Pogba. And
it had a weird novelty feel to it.
Because he was a defender.
Because it's Paul Pogba's brother. Yeah, he's a centre-back. He's a left-footed centre-back.
All right.
I went and watched some footage from him playing for Saint Etienne and for him playing for a Turkish team whose name I cannot pronounce. Turns out Florentin Pogba is actually a pretty good defender. So if you imagine a more limited Paul Pogba.
If you grew up playing in the backyard against Paul, you probably would be.
You learn to tackle, right? Tackle or get embarrassed every day.
Pretty much.
By your younger brother.
They played Megs. There's no chance they didn't at all times. You're looking out for getting up Megs.
Florentin Pogba, so good at doing the telescopic leg tackle. Right?
I like that one.
I guess the best reference for you is to picture Paul Pogba doing it.
It's go-go gadget legs.
Yeah, go-go gadget legs. Even sometimes you think, he's going to step in front and win a header. Oh, no, his leg just extended 7 feet and won the ball.
I know the reference you wanted to make, and I understand why it wouldn't have worked for a mass podcast audience.
I don't know the
Nana.
reference.
Our friend Nana is the go-go gadget leg champion.
He is. Yes, he is. Also, really good with the ball. Florentin Pogba can spray the ball around with his left foot. I think he'll work for De Boer.
I thought we were still talking about Nana for a second. I was he's fine with the ball. Yes, okay.
Nana could have a go in Major League Soccer. So I think Florentin Pogba is going to end up playing for Atlanta United pretty regularly.
That feels like one of those predictions that when we revisit next year will either be like Daryl Carlton or he played 2 games.
Yeah. I will say, last time we got someone's theoretically less talented brother, it was Bradley Wright Phillips in MLS.
Okay. I mean, I feel like you're forgetting John Rooney. I don't know if he came before or after Bradley Wright. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right.
That was the first draft.
And then we have Gonzalo Higuain's better brother, but so it doesn't really follow.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
All right. So anything else for Atlanta?
Just that I thought it was worth noting that the youngsters have gotten older. Carlton, Bello, Ezekiel Barco, who has not looked impressive.
Last we saw Carlton, he was suspended, right? He had been not allowed to take part in festivities.
He'd been partying before the MLS Cup. I think he's back in good graces. So they're all just worth keeping an eye on this year. Carlton, Bello, and Barco. I also think we mentioned Bello and Shea at the top of the show. I basically think they're going to split minutes. I think you're going to see half Breck Shea at left wing back, half George Bello, and I think that's a good situation for George Bello.
All right, that makes sense to me. I have one more question. I don't mean to put you on the spot because I haven't been able to hear or to find much more about it, but there were the rumors that Darlington Nagbe really wanted to move to Columbus, that he was going to force a move, that he was really unhappy and wanted more money. That all seems to have been resolved. From what you read, is that the case? That it seems like he's going to be there, everything's okay?
Unless I didn't read deep enough, I just read that it was personal issues and that everybody was happy that was the reason, and that's been resolved and there's no more conflict. So Darlington Nagbe should expect to be part of Atlanta United going forward.
Yeah.
And if you're part of a team that wants to move the ball around, Darlington Nagbe is a good guy to have on your team. Right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
So all that works.
It did feel a little bit like when Sergio Ramos says he definitely wants to move to a new club, and then suddenly he gets a new offer. It felt a little bit like that of Darlington Nagbe.
There was no contract wrangling here, though, right?
Well, I think initially maybe he wanted more money. It was what was being reported. I doubt he got a new contract from anything, but maybe he just wanted just difference. Maybe he just wanted reassurances. I don't know.
Weirdly, one of the things I want in the world is a happy Darlington Nagbe, because he's a joy to watch when he's happy and sort of in the zone. So I think anything that we can do to make that happen, we should do that.
All right. You should write a note to Arthur Blank. All right, so that's Atlanta United. Anything else?
Nothing else. Otherwise, I'll just keep banging on forever.
All right. Well, I will take us to the Chicago Fire, where things seem better?
Didn't everybody retire?
What do you mean?
We got Brandon Vincent, Christian Dean, all those guys retired last year.
It's the people that you didn't think would retire, retired, and then Bastian Schweinsteiger still there. So then make of that what you will. But yeah, Chicago Fire, second bottom in the East, 32 points from 34 games last season. Not really an ideal season, obviously, and then there was the kind of issues with the front office and the supporters groups. We talked to Nicole Hack about that one. Things seem better there, but it does feel like Chicago are a team that it's it could be good, but it could be bad, and I think that's pretty pretty consistent for most of the East. And I think if you look at the Fire themselves, it really is. I think the Extra Time Radio guys made this point that it's like front six, very good. Back four and then goalkeeper, there are some question marks there. And it really is the case because you've got McCarty and Schweinsteiger. That seems like it should be a good double pivot. You've got very exciting attackers ahead of them. I want to talk about them in a moment.
Are we going to talk Georgi Mihailovic?
We can talk about him now, yeah. We can do it right now. Why not? Because I think he is going to be...
Have I changed the order accidentally here?
It doesn't matter. I'm happy to talk about whatever you want to talk about, buddy.
Right.
But yeah, I think we're looking at them probably in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, whatever. Positions are all fluid and it doesn't matter. But yeah, it will be Mihailovic as that number 10, and I think they're going to look to build through him 100%.
Hashtag play your kids, especially when they're really talented.
Yes. And I think that those are both the case for Mihailovic, but he is not alone in his talent because you've got Kataj, who we talked about earlier. You were big on him last season. And then Frankowski, who is Polish, so he is not Frankowski. He is a new addition to the Fire. And I think one of my predictions, this is my specifically, but sort of not measurable prediction, so it's more so just a guarantee. I think Fire fans are going to love Przemysław, is how I'm going to pronounce it.
Does that have a question mark on the end?
It's Polish. He scored 24 in 140 for Jagiellonia Białystok in Poland. But really, from watching, we have the Y-Scout account, which is very useful for things like this. Watching him play, he is just sort of, I feel like the type of player that Fire fans really want. He is kind of smaller, but a little bit more wide set. So he's just really good at knocking players off the ball, but he does this very quick. He's got a crazy acceleration and closing speed. So you'll see routinely him 20 yards behind the ball, and then it'll be a lateral pass to the number 9 who's about to shoot, and then suddenly there's just a little poke tackle because he is dropped in. And I think just his defensive work rate, but then his ability to turn and play a ball out and launch counterattacks.
Yeah.
I think he is exactly what Fire fans have been looking for in terms of chance creation on the right-hand side.
And sorry, remind me his name again?
You would do that.
Just a second name.
Frankowski.
So we can expect to see him on the right wing.
Przemysław Frankowski. Yes.
Lovely.
But a more specific prediction I'm going to say is that Chicago's starting fullbacks on opening day will have fewer starts than whoever replaces them.
So Matt Polster's gone. Brandon Vincent's retired.
Yes.
I couldn't even tell you.
Which is... Let's pause right there to reflect on Brandon Vincent, 24, 25 years old. He retires. Matt Polster felt that was their strongest position last year, was fullback, and it is now absolutely their vulnerability because Polster left on a free. He didn't want to be in Chicago anymore. They also, worth noting here, they didn't get Andrew Guzman, was it? I forget his name.
Guzman.
Andrew Guzman, thank you. Not Guzman. There's Guzman elsewhere. Yeah, and so, it just felt like they kind of lost out a little bit, and that is where they're going to be continuing to try to find solutions. I think that means they're going to be looking at Edwards and Campos, Raheem Edwards, as their kind of two temporary fullbacks. Neither of them is actually a defender, and so I think that's going to be one where it's going to be
formerly of Toronto.
I believe so.
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
Yes. And then Corrales, Hasler could get chances in there too, but it just feels like that's where they're going to be kind of experimenting and trying to figure things out on the fly, and that's going to be maybe the case with their defense as well. Kapelov is back. They've brought in Marcelo, who's a 29-year-old Brazilian who was for Sporting Lisbon. It's a lot of this stuff. For Sporting Club de Portugal, but never played there. He never got any minutes. So it's a little bit of, is he going to be good? I guess we'll find out, and that sort of is the case for their entire defense, including their new goalkeeper, David Ousted.
So what's your specific prediction?
Is that their fullbacks on opening day will have fewer starts than whoever eventually replaces them. So those two fullbacks, when you go at the end of the season, will not have as many appearances for Chicago Fire as the two players who inevitably get more appearances,
I think you're putting faith in the front office to replace them.
Or just for something else to be figured out.
Yes.
I think they're going to need a variety of solutions. They won't need solutions up top. They have Nemanja Nikolic, who I think with more support from Mihailovic as a dedicated number 10 and then from Kataj and Frankowski, I think he's going to get plenty of good service. I think we'll see a return to form, as has been mooted by many other outlets.
And then the other thing, this is what I know about Chicago Fire and Mihailovic, is he was injured most of last season, so we kind of didn't get to see Mihailovic play, didn't get to see Chicago Fire use his talent. So, knock on wood, injury-free 2019. We'll really see the best of Mihailovic. And the phrase I keep hearing is he's got the keys to the car in Chicago.
If he can learn to play on the half turn. Do you remember that whole?
Oh, he was so a couple of people, I think including me, mentioned that his half turn wasn't very present or fast in that US game, and that's a thing he could improve. Mm-hmm. And he was sarcastically saying he was working on his half turn.
Yes,
on Instagram.
Yeah,
I kind of like that punch. I kind of like that fire.
Yeah, there we go. I think again another reason that he is endeared to Fire fans, but. If we watch the Fire early on this season, the thing I'll be looking for is Marcelo. I want to see how he does at center back alongside Kopylov.
It's not the Marcelo, right?
It is not the Marcelo. It is a Brazilian defender, but not that Marcelo, even though he does want to move, so you never know. But I think if those two look good together, if that kind of center back pairing looks strong and looks capable of kind of like learning from each other, becoming a good unit, that will be very indicative of how the season goes. But if they don't look very good, if they don't solve the fullback problem, if David Alsted is a veteran and maybe like struggles to stay fit or struggles to play every game, then you're going to see some question marks similar to what you saw last season.
Anything else on Chicago Fire before we move on to our first expansion team of our MLS previews?
No, I think that's about it for me in Chicago.
All right, then let's get to FC Cincinnati. FC Cincinnati, an expansion team who have really, the phrase I keep seeing is they're making sure they don't get embarrassed by essentially stacking their defense and stacking their team with some MLS experience, right? A good example is they've picked up Kendall Waston and Nick Hagland, formerly of Vancouver and Toronto, respectively. Just experienced old MLS pros, right? Neither of them like wonderful with the ball at their feet. Both of them are going to win headers.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Fernando Adi, they made that move, last year, which felt really odd at the time, right? To start signing your MLS players while you're in USL.
Him and Fatai Alashe.
Yes. Yeah, those are the two that they signed, right? But I think an expansion team with Fernando Adi at the front, that's a huge bonus to have. Do you remember when it was all about like, will Fernando Adi move to Europe? Mm-hmm. Well, the answer was no. He moved to Cincinnati, but that's great for Cincinnati.
It is.
It is.
How do you think he'll fit in? Will it be great for him in Cincinnati?
So I think it will work. For one, he's like guaranteed to start pretty much all the time, right? The big thing I see is they're going to go with a back three. They're going to have lots of numbers behind the ball. And from what I understand, the way that Koch, I'm not sure how we pronounce his name.
It's Koch. Yeah.
Koch. The way he likes to do it is then to go direct to Addy when they break, and then he holds up, lays off to like Darren Mattocks or Ledesma or one of the other attacking players, and then the attack goes from there, right? So he's going to get, he's a big guy, Fernando Addy. He can bring balls down. I think there's going to be a lot of going direct to him, and then the play starts with him.
So I had seen some concern from Cincinnati fans because it did seem like it was going to be a 3-5-2.
Yeah.
And that Addy, and I really couldn't remember a time where he like really was playing in a front two. Mm-hmm. But maybe it's not going to be that. Maybe it's going to be him kind of up there by himself, knocking it down and having players running off.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's going to be sort of a 3-4-2-1 or a 3-5-1-1 where like he's the main striker and the other guy is buzzing around him. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you had to guess who that other guy would be, of the many, many options?
Probably Darren Mattocks right now. Yeah. But there's also chances for someone like Kakuta Mane, who has joined FC Cincinnati. He is a guy that does need a bounce back.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes.
So if you're not familiar with Kakuta Mane, he was the darling of our podcast for a long time for his decision to play for Vancouver, but live in that, I can't remember the name of it now.
Port Roberts?
It's one of those two. Live in that weird little part that was still in the United States so that he could get his US citizenship and eventually play for the national team. That's still his goal. I've seen a lot of interviews where Kakuta Mane is still all about playing for the US men's national team.
I'm still laughing just because that was just such a, like, the British being like, hey, this obviously extends, like, it should be ours. We'll give you a little bit of land. Can we have that? And Americans just be like, nah, it's ours. So stubborn. So needlessly stubborn.
It could all work out though, right?
But I guess it did get Kakuta Mane his citizenship, so I'm fine with it.
But things went wrong, right? Yeah. He went from Columbus, he went to Pachuca, didn't get that many games. Went to, I believe it's called St. Gallen in Switzerland, didn't get that many games. I honestly don't know why, but I'm hoping that he'll find a nice fit with FC Cincinnati.
I did like the idea of him, like really wanted to give Ohio a second chance. Like he was like, maybe it was just Columbus. Let's see what Cincinnati is like. Maybe I'm more of a Cincy person.
Let's drive down the road past that sign.
Rule number one is don't call it Cincy, I think.
Okay, we should get to my prediction.
I suppose.
My prediction is Eric Ledesma, USL MVP in 2018, will lead this team in assists and mostly from set pieces.
Okay.
So
I bet I can guess. So, I feel like height factors into this.
It does. And this is, I should credit Bobby Warshaw. I think I either heard or saw him mention this idea that if you've got Fernando Adi, if you've got Kendall Watson, if you've got Hagland, and you've got other centre-backs in there, plus whoever else is tall on your team, you have a lot of targets every time you have a free kick. Eric Ledesma is great at serving balls in on free kicks. So great. When he came here to Richmond, played the Richmond Kickers in the USL last season, scored an Olympico.
Oh, decent? Okay.
So a lot of really nice left-footed service from Eric Ledesma, and he's going to have a lot of targets to aim at, a lot of aerial targets.
As long as he was aiming for the Olympico.
I think he was.
As long as it was just a mishit corner.
Celebrated like he was. He followed it up with scoring from distance, like from about 30-something yards away. That
sounds about
game.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I was watching Ledesma highlights and I was like, wait, I recognise that stadium. So yeah, Eric Ledesma will also, here's my other specific prediction, so he'll lead the team in assists, mostly from set pieces, so he's going to have a pretty good year, I think. He'll also have one memorable penalty miss, because he does the hop a la Joseph Martinez and a stutter on the way up. And I think it seems mostly effective, but when you miss, it's so very, very bad that it tends to then get shared around a lot on social media, right?
Yep.
So there's going to be one famous, like 15 minutes of fame, social media famous, Eric Ledesma penalty kick disaster.
All right. So let's end on a slightly, potentially more optimistic note for Cincinnati before we move on. So there's been a lot made of the fact that they haven't gone the Atlanta route, that maybe they've gone a little bit more like Minnesota United.
Yeah, I'd say they've got Minnesota premium.
Yeah, exactly. But with an emphasis on defense, as you said.
Yeah.
So what do you think like this season looks like for them? I know we try to stay away from like, will they make the playoffs, or, are they going to be dead last or anything like that? But like, I think sometimes when we do these previews, we end up reading so much about the teams that it becomes this like, oh yeah, that guy's going to be great, and that guy's going to be great, and suddenly I'm like, oh, they're going to win the East. And I think that can be a little bit unrealistic. So I'm wondering where you sort of are on FC Cincinnati. Do you feel like they're ready or still preparing?
I think they'll succeed in their goal of not getting embarrassed, but they're not going to be good enough to stack up loads of points and make them. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs in 6th place, but my guess is maybe they finish like 8th or 9th out of 12 teams. So no one's like, oh, Cincinnati are a disaster. They're not losing 5-0 every week. There won't be some, huge embarrassment, but also not enough to set the world alight.
That makes sense.
That's a genuine prediction.
It was also crafty by you to say that they'll finish 8th, because we should probably add playoff format change this year. Only the different conference champions get a first round bye. 7 teams from each conference make the playoff. 2 play 7. 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5.
Yep.
And then there's no home and away. It is just top seed plays at home.
Yep.
Whoever wins advances.
Highest seed plays at home in the playoffs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 7 teams could make it. So that's always a good thing.
I'm glad I said 8.
There you go.
I definitely knew what I was talking about.
And I do think, again, I think the East is pretty wide open. So you never know, but I think I'm with you. I don't think Cincinnati are going to be chasing that 7th spot.
I got a couple of extra details on Cincinnati, just in case people don't know. They did sign Alvis Powell and Greg Garza. So they've got sort of, in a weird way, premium MLS fullbacks, right?
Yep.
That's a really good addition, especially if you're going with wingbacks. And then an extra bonus prediction, Kendall Waston will get more goals than red cards this season.
Okay.
That's a positive.
How many did he get last year?
Actually, not that many. I think maybe just 1 last year and none the year before that. So red cards, I mean. So he has a reputation for constant red cards, but I think that all just kind of happened like in a certain couple of years. It's not necessarily true throughout his whole career. Yeah.
We'll see.
But then he'll be heading in those Ledesma crosses. So even if he gets 2 red cards, he'll get 3 goals.
Yeah, I think I'd have more concern if it was like Cincinnati are going to be wide open and pressing. We'll see what Kendall Waston does.
Yes, exactly. He's also going to be protected, right? Because he's not going to be left isolated by some crazy pressing scheme.
All right, so 3 of our 12 Eastern Conference teams down. Still many more to come. I would say 9 more to come, in fact.
It's going to be a long episode, isn't it, Taylor?
It sure is. But first, we should have a word from today's sponsor.
Yes.
SeatGeek, our old pals at SeatGeek.
So buying tickets to sporting events used to be complicated, used to be confusing. Now there is one app. You can go to the app and it pulls in, it aggregates ticket sales from all over the internet. It's all in one place. All you got to do is use your thumb or your finger, tap away, and you can buy yourself a ticket nice and easy.
You sure can. And it's worth buying that ticket because it's always more fun to, I think, attend the game, and especially soccer in person. Sometimes it can be a bit much if you're used to being able to walk to the kitchen or use the restroom during commercials of an NFL game. you like maybe being there in person and just sitting there waiting to come back from a TV timeout isn't as much fun. But with soccer...
Are you making a pitch for generally just going and watching soccer?
Pretty much. Yeah. Because I do think, especially if you're a person who maybe hasn't always gotten into Major League Soccer or only gets into the playoffs. If you take my wife's approach to football, which is come the Super Bowl, she's really going to get into football this year.
Yeah.
And then she waits until the Super Bowl the next time to get into football again.
She's just into the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're taking that approach, maybe start a little bit earlier. And I do think with some of the soccer-specific stadiums that have come online and how good some of these teams have gotten, like going to see, I will forever sing the praises of Audi Field. I thought it was excellent the way they built it, the way it's so like tight and on the field. It gives you a very good viewing atmosphere, but also a very good view at the same time. So I think there's definitely something to be said for going to SeatGeek and using it to find tickets to all of the many teams we're going to be discussing.
I think that's the important part, right? If you go to SeatGeek, you can find tickets to all kinds of Major League Soccer games. You also can get $10 off if you use the Total Soccer Show promo code.
You sure can. Just download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code TSS today. That's promo code TSS, which stands for Daryl.
Total Soccer Show?
No, it stands for Daryl, actually.
Oh, does it really?
That wasn't a question. No, it stands for Total Soccer Show. TSS for $10 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Remember, folks, SeatGeek, life's an event. We have the tickets.
Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show. All right, let's move on to a team that has been saved. Taylor is previewing Columbus Crew. I'm so excited that we're getting to do this in 2019.
All right. Just because you didn't think we would before?
I mean, it was always a possibility that it would be their last season or no more, right?
It was an interesting thing because I didn't want to like lead off my research by focusing on that issue. And so it was like I was looking at the team and I do think they're probably going to underperform a little bit compared to what they did last season. And so I sort of initially had this like viewpoint of, it's going to be kind of a down season and this isn't as exciting and this isn't as exciting. And then I sort of paused and was like, oh, right, they're there. That's pretty exciting, yes. I think. And it is in terms of what they've done to sort of restructure. They're still a very thin team, I think, because they haven't spent as much money yet. But the new ownership group, Caleb Porter coming in, I think that's a very
huge, right?
It is. It still is like, given where we were at this time last year, where it sort of felt like, the Crew are probably going to move, and then Greg Berhalter's probably going to be the national team coach, or there's a decent chance he's there. To go to now where it's like they're not going to move, and they've got Caleb Porter. It feels like a little bit of a step down from Berhalter to Porter because of that level of enthusiasm, and Porter's coming off of leaving Portland and then not working. So, but it still is the case that they've brought in an Ohio guy to run an Ohio team, and they've brought in Tim Bezbatchenko from Toronto FC.
That's the big get,
and
right?
He's not the GM. It's worth noting he is the president, which means he is overseeing both like the team itself and the players they're bringing in, but also a lot. Like I think a big thing is their new stadium that they're going for, and kind of pushing through a lot of off-field stuff to put Columbus in a situation where then they can start to spend more money and be that more alluring team that they've been in the past.
Yeah, one thing I saw, I don't know if you read the story or not, I actually didn't read the full story, I just saw the headline, so I'm treading on dangerous ground here, was that they were going to do a deal where they were going to offer free tickets to Ohio State students and free transport to games. Just a really smart bit of outreach to get like young, enthusiastic fans who could then be with you for life.
Yep, and I think it's a smart way to do it. Again, this is all laying the groundwork for new stadium coming in, which will be, like I saw an article, I forget in which publication, talking about how like people are going to have to park and walk. It's going to be up to a 15-minute walk because you're parking, because there's not very much parking downtown, and all the responses were like, because it's downtown. Like that's why we want it here, so we don't have to drive places, so we can just walk to the stadium. And I think if you get people in, young people who may end up living downtown in that city, if you can kind of get them in early and keep them with it and build a new stadium and bring back that enthusiasm, well, not even bring it back, it's already there.
Keep it going.
Yeah. It makes it a very exciting future, and I think that's what Crew fans will be excited about, in addition to just the team being there in the first place.
But let's get to the team then.
All right.
What do you want to lead off with the team?
I mean, I think with the team, it's basically that it's similar, but maybe not as good as I guess where I am. I think my catchphrase for Columbus was more veteran, just as good. Okay. Because I think the best summary of this one would be, I think somebody on Reddit, there were points about is Porter as good as Berhalter right now? Probably not, because Berhalter had the system and had the familiarity with the team. Is a 35-year-old Higuain as good as a 34-year-old Higuain? And that's the type of thing I guess I'm getting at. But other than that, I mean, it's going to be a fairly familiar team to Crew fans. It's going to be Gyasi Zardes up top. They're probably going to stick to something approximating a 4-2-3-1. That means Higuain behind Zardes. They've brought in players to kind of be more exciting, to create more opportunities on the wing, but I think you're still going to be looking at Pedro Santos and Justin Meram at least to start.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
I'm a big Justin Meram fan.
But I think what it comes down to for me is that the Crew scored the fewest goals of any playoff team. And I think that's going to continue. In fact, that's my prediction. They will score the fewest goals of any team in the top 9 teams, is how I'm going to put that one. But
in the whole league or in the East?
In the East. But I think they're still going to be in that top 9. So I do think it's it's going to be kind of figuring out what fits. Is what was happening last season working for Caleb Porter? Does he have to adjust? But I still think they're going to be very much in that playoff conversation.
I'm curious why you chose 9.
I think because
7 makes the playoffs, right?
It does, but I think because I wasn't so confident when I first started writing Columbus that they were going to make the playoffs. I think having looked at the rest of the teams in the East and listened to more of the teams that Daryl's going to be discussing, again, I think the East is really, really wide open. But it's not just because I think Caleb Porter might take a little bit of time. It's because there sort of still are big questions about their chance creation. Mm-hmm. So would you like to hear about their lack of chance creation?
Yeah, let's get it.
All right. Because Justin Meram, as I said, is still probably the starter. And almost every comment I saw about Justin Meram was sort of they're okay, but I don't know if I want Justin Meram starting, or I don't really know if I want him dribbling at defenders and not creating again. And his production definitely fell off at the end of the season. Pedro Santos
he just needed a rest.
Sure, okay, maybe that's it. Maybe he was just so scarred from Orlando that he needed a full 6 months to recover. Pedro Santos was
inconsistent. He needed a full Columbus winter.
Yeah, perfect. That's what brought him back. And then Rubinho Barbosa is new. He's another winger that they brought in to compete there. But again, he's new. There's not a lot of MLS experience, so it's always sort of up in the air as to how quickly they can hit the ground running, if they can hit the ground running, and how quickly they get up to speed. But again, when I go back to sort of the depressing or the slightly downturn thing for the Crew, is that you look at a player like Milton Valenzuela, who I was really excited about last year. Yeah, they signed him to a permanent deal. And then he goes and tears his Achilles. No, he tore his ACL, excuse me. He's out for the season.
Oh, no.
So they've replaced him with Waylon Francis, who is 28 years old. He's a veteran, but he's not this exciting 20-year-old who can bomb down that wing and get forward all the time and really help facilitate attacks. So if you don't have Valenzuela there, instead of it's Waylon Francis, I don't know if he gets forward as much. So maybe that limits a little bit of what you're able to do. And then it's worth noting, I mean, they have Zach Steffen until the Gold Cup, but after the Gold Cup, he's off to Man City. I think it's going to be Joe Bendick, is I think who they're looking at to come in and replace him. But is that the kind of to go from a 23-year-old, potentially the next number 1 for the U.S. national team, to a 29-year-old who isn't the next number 1 for the U.S. national team? It's just those little things that, for another team, I think would maybe have me feeling a little less optimistic. But because it's the Crew and we're talking about the Crew in Columbus, it's hard to be negative.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I can't let the Columbus Crew preview go without mentioning Artur, just because he is a player that I always enjoyed every time I saw Columbus Crew. And as much as I enjoyed driving the World Trap bandwagon, have to admit that after watching Columbus Crew, I think Artur is the better all-round player. Making that midfield tick.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be Artur. I think it'll be World Trap. I think I'm excited to see that midfield, and I think Crew fans certainly will be, but should continue to be excited for the next 2 years, because I think with Porter there now, with Bezbatchenko there now, with lots more exciting stuff coming down the line, it seems like maybe they'll try to retool in the summer when they've up until when the window reopens and they can sign some players. But I think there's also a chance that maybe they'll wait and kind of see out this season as almost a victory lap season of whatever we get is great, but we're building towards something. This is year 1.
I guess, did it all happen, the takeover happened too late the saving of the crew happened too late to like really rebuild the roster for Caleb Porter this year.
Yeah, I think
maybe
so.
the Caleb Porter signing happened too late to really rebuild
the
roster for Caleb Porter this year.
All of that is possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, there could still be moves to be made, and then it really gets back to that depth. If Higuain gets hurt, they've got to sign somebody because nobody can really replace him, so then maybe you have to change stuff. If Gyasi Zardes doesn't score the way he did or doesn't score as consistently as he did, you've got to look at other options there. If Will Trapp ends up getting another offer this summer and maybe he does actually move this time around, again, there's lots of question marks.
I can hit a diagonal pass.
Okay, perfect. Then maybe Daryl comes in and maybe it all works out.
Available on weekends. Anything else on the Columbus Crew?
That's it for me.
All right, DC United. First, I'm going to offer some pessimism.
Okay.
I think every preview I've read, everything I've heard, people are underplaying the very, very positive impact of the second half of the season being played mostly at home. And everybody mentions it, but nobody really reckons with the idea that that's the reason they made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, to be able to play at home for the stretch run when everybody else is tired and exhausted and carrying 15 injuries for everybody just to get to go home and sleep in their bed, it makes a massive difference.
And then the other thing is you've got Wayne Rooney flying to the West Coast. You've got Wayne Rooney playing on turf. You've got Lucho Acosta. There was the whole PSG thing. For those who don't know, PSG put an offer in during the January transfer window. It wasn't quite enough, right? DC asked for a little bit more, and then PSG were like, don't worry about it. Apparently Lucho Acosta's been great since, right? He's not been complaining or anything like that. But his contract expires in December 2019. So if he's thinking about a move to Europe, he's mid-20s, right? He's 24 or so. He's either going to let his contract run out and just walk at the end of the season, or he's going to be maybe getting bids if they want to get some money for him in the summer. There could be, even if he's brilliant on the field again and linking up with Senor Wayne again the whole year, there could be some distractions for Lucho Acosta this season.
Yeah, I mean, and
there's all your DC United pessimism.
Goodness, but I would say though, like it is justified pessimism because if you're Lucho Acosta and DC want you to sign a long-term extension in other leagues, I go back to like. Shocking. It took me 40 minutes to get to United. Like David De Gea, when it looked like his deal was going to be done, then there was like Faxgate and Real Madrid got the ban. He still signs that extension. But even then, I think like the prevailing theory was, he did that because he wanted United to still get kind of fair value for his services. He can still force that move through. If Acosta signs a long-term deal, MLS being the way it is,
it's hard to leave.
It's harder to leave, and it's
Hotel
harder.
California.
And now MLS might step in and be like, no, we've got a 5-year deal here. We're building around you as like the face of DC for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
We want $30 million. We're not letting you go for $12 million or whatever. And then suddenly it makes it harder. So yeah, because I was thinking like, if you're DC, you're trying to lock that down. But if you're Lucho Acosta, maybe you're trying to not be locked down.
I got one more bit of pessimism.
Okay.
They didn't upgrade at centre back. It's still, as far as I know, Frederick Brandt and Steve Birnbaum are going to be the starting centre-backs. They picked up Donovan Pines as a homegrown. Apparently he was really good for University of Maryland in college soccer, but you never know how it translates, right? So I think to be like more of an elite team, but people are talking about them like possible MLS Cup winners. I'm not sure a Birnbaum-Brillant centre-back pair wins MLS Cup.
Yeah, I think that's probably
right.
That's
and I'll be
safe.
happy to have this sentence replayed over and over again if they win it in November 2019. But it's not quite at that elite level because I know it's still like not as much money is invested in MLS defenses, but there are other teams that are investing more.
Yeah. I mean, that is definitely true. The one thing I would say that might make me or DC fans feel a little bit better is that when we saw them last season, when we saw them in person or on TV, fullback was more of a concern for me than center back. Like I think when we saw them, Nick De Leon was there.
Yeah,
he is since departed. And so maybe if you get better fullbacks, stronger fullbacks in, maybe if like then you don't have to have Steve Birnbaum like always worried about, do I need to slide over a little bit and help cover? Maybe they can focus a little bit more on just being center backs.
Well, I don't know if you're deliberately setting me up, but
Never.
To get to the optimism, they have signed Leonardo Yara, who was Boca Juniors starting right back, right? Not some Boca Juniors castaway. This guy started at right back for Boca Juniors regularly in the Copa Libertadores final last year. My prediction is that Leonardo Yara makes the MLS All-Star team.
Okay. I would be very happy with that. I mean, it does, because it's, I mean, they're going to have to compete with everybody on Atlanta, because we know how Atlanta fans vote on social media. It is going to be in Orlando.
If Escobar plays right back for a good enough spell, he'll get some votes.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's true. But I do think it's in Orlando. I am previewing Orlando. I don't know if they're going to have as strong of a season, so maybe they have fewer players. Maybe that does open the door a little bit.
It's also, there aren't that many high-profile right backs in Major League Soccer, and to get this guy, I believe he's on loan with an option to buy from Boca Juniors. I think he's going to stand out. You know how I roll. I've been and watched some footage. He's tall for a right back. I think he's about 6 foot. So good at sticking you and then driving. So he's not going to be, some right backs are sort of, sounds disrespectful, but they're almost placeholders. They just receive the ball, pass it to someone else. If they tackle, they'll just pass it to someone else. Guys like Leonardo Yara will tackle you, then take the ball and drive forward and make something happen. So I think he's really going to catch the eye at right back and offer something a little bit different for DC United.
Okay.
Like, right back will be a source of strength. The way that, when peak Marcelo, it was almost like the whole game flowed through left back because Marcelo was there. You might see a bit of that with Yara for DC United at right back.
And again, this time we're talking about the original Marcelo at Real Madrid, correct?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Not when he had a weird cameo that I missed for DC United?
No.
That would be more fun.
Yeah. And I'm assuming I'm pronouncing his name correctly. It's Jara. I'm going with Yara.
Sure.
Yeah.
Could be Hara. I don't know. I don't know how these things work.
Could be Hara. Yeah, I think actually you might be right. So I think that's an area to
You
keep
heard
an
me
eye on.
pronounce Polish earlier. I'm not
did.
criticizing anything.
I think, as usual, Russell Canaus and Junior Moreno will do that work in central defensive midfield in the 4-2-3-1. We were really impressed when we saw them as a pair. It's the most frustrating thing because you can't make a good argument for Chris Durkin to start over them. And I really want to, because every time he plays, he's a Richmond guy. We're big fans of his game. We followed him through the U17s and beyond. He's so close to cracking that starting 11. But when you see Russell Canaus breaking up plays and making smart passes, you see Moreno doing a bit of the running around him. I just don't see a way in for Durkin. And weirdly, I think Durkin, this is almost a prediction, might get sold to a big European team without cracking the guaranteed every time starting 11 for DC United.
Yeah.
Right? He'll be sold for his potential.
I believe we call that pulling a Chris Richards.
He'll be sold for his potential. That's what I'm going to call that. But won't make the starting 11 based on current form.
I would much prefer to see him maybe getting a few more minutes at the end of each game, as opposed to playing for Loudoun United or in USL Championship or USL League One.
I don't think he'll fall that far because he's still going to be the next guy off the bench.
But it's one of those strange situations when you would rather him be with that first team and only get 10 minutes every other game than drop down to that next level. So
I agree with that.
There's another newbie though, right?
There is. Okay. I'm glad you said that because I don't want to move on from him. His name is Lucas Rodriguez, also known as Titi Rodriguez, 21 years old. On loan from Estudiantes. He played with Acosta when Acosta was at Estudiantes. I think as did Hara.
Friendship.
So there is a whole Acosta friendship thing going on here.
Were those before or after the PSG thing?
Way before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering if that was we'll make you happy. We'll bring in your friends.
Oh, I don't know.
Please don't leave.
I actually don't know the timing on that. I think that's just that. Yeah. This isn't like a make good. But if anything, these are just very talented players that DC is signing. Neither of these guys were big headlines like Rooney, but Hara and Rodriguez, really talented guys. Rodriguez especially is what I would call raw, but really exciting. He's going to play, or he did play for Estudiantes on the left wing, but he's very right-footed and is extremely fast. Fast enough that you see him go in from a sort of left-backish area and burn in about 3 people down the wing. So we're going to have some great moments with Rodriguez for DC United.
Am I feeling optimistic about a DC United season?
Possibly.
What is happening?
Because you're going to have this front four of, say, Wayne Rooney at the tip, Acosta underneath him, the pace of Titi Rodriguez on the left, and I think Paul Arriola on the right. And I'm up on Paul Arriola, especially after watching him play for Greg Berhalter's US men's national team.
Okay.
And there's talk of Arriola at right back, but if Leonardo Hara's the player that I think he is, there's no need for Paul Arriola to play right back.
And left back, do we know? Or is it still maybe to be decided?
Oh, I forgot his name. It's a Costa Rican whose name I can't remember.
That's fine.
Right
all right. But so we've got that, and then Bill Hamid in goal. So, okay. All right, DC. I'm feeling a little bit optimistic about things in a way that I was not necessarily sure I would.
There you go.
I would say Montreal fans should probably also be feeling more optimistic than I would have expected.
Okay.
with a quick caveat, because it seems like last season with Remy Gard, they tried to be possession-based and very pretty soccer. That didn't work. They kind of like set back to a more defensive counterattack approach. That worked really well for them. I think a lot of fans that I've seen want them to try to re-embrace that possession style. I don't think they should. I don't think they will. But I think
because it didn't work.
But I think that will make them very good because they have so much talent that it feels like it should work. But I don't think that is the best way they can play. Instead, I think if you, a Montreal fan, like prepare to basically have a season. I don't mean this in as negative a way as it's going to sound, but if you prepare for like Jose Mourinho, but with more of an attacking plan, I think that's what it's going to look like for Montreal this season. Okay. I think they're going to get bodies behind the ball, but then they will have the ability to play on the break and score ruthless goals. Like, I won't be surprised to see Montreal win some games like 2-3-0 and have 35% of possession because they can do that.
You got a very specific prediction for me?
I do. My very specific prediction is that Montreal will inquire about signing or reloaning 2 different players from 2 different clubs because they've got 2 people on loan for this season that I am really excited to watch, and I knew nothing about them heading into this preview, but I watched a decent amount of footage of both. One is right back Zachary Brault-Guillard, Guillard. He's on loan from Lyon. And then the other one is forward Orji Okonkwo, 21-year-old Nigerian winger attacker on loan from Bologna. To go back to, I'm going to say Zachary because the French hyphenate is hard. Bakary Sagna is expected to be like the match day, first day right back.
Yep.
But Zachary Brault-Guillard, 20-year-old right back, signed his first pro contract last year. But watching him play, he is so good at like waiting and patiently standing a person up in a 1v1, and then it's just a poke tackle away, and then he quickly counters. And he can just spring from good defensive positioning to very dangerous attacking positions very quickly. And I feel like I think Bakary Sagna is 35, 36 years old off the top of my head, and I think over the course of a season, he's going to fade a little bit, but you're going to see this youngster come through and maybe be that starting right back. So I think Montreal maybe going to look to keep him around for another season, maybe sign him permanently. And then Orji Okonkwo, 21-year-old, as I said.
I've never heard of him. I'm really excited.
Nor had I.
It's a great name, for one thing.
Yes, it is. And to watch a player coming to Major League Soccer and then to like go watch footage of them and be like, oh, he's playing in Serie A. Like, he was just playing in Serie A. Like, that's a big deal, playing for Bologna. And it was
kind of like Joseph Martinez.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it was especially interesting because almost all if you did like the automatic report or whatever on Y-Scout, it would just be a lot of aerial duel defense, aerial duel challenge, 1v1 defending, defensive positioning, because it was Bologna bunkering and just looking long, but he was going for everything. He was battling for every single like 50-50 ball. He's dropping in. He's making defensive plays, and I think he's going to be, again, that type of player who has the energy and enthusiasm and pace and ability to cause problems, especially on the counter, and that's another one that I think they're going to lock down.
So it's team counterattack.
Exactly. I think, but it's just how much he like fights for every single ball. And the fact that he's such a capable and willing runner. Mm-hmm. But then that's not even mentioning Safir Taider, who's more than capable of spreading the ball, scoring some goals himself. They brought in Maxi Urruti from FC Dallas. He will be there. Exactly. That's what I thought too. But he's going to score. I think last year he scored 8 goals, and that was a downturn in form for him.
All right.
But it's just the mobility and the movement, and I just think between him, Piatti, and Novillo, who's probably going to start on the right wing, he's another one they brought in. It's just going to be kind of movement all over the place and fluidity, but that sort of almost like technical counterattacking precision where everybody knows exactly where they need to be and how to play through each other. That I think is going to make Montreal really fun to watch.
Can I ask you a tough question? Did Piatti only get a passing mention because his powers are on the wane, or because he's just so always a key part of Montreal's attack that we almost take for granted that we don't have to preview Piatti?
Well, one thing is that I said Montreal were going to sell him last season because I didn't think Montreal were going to be very good, and I thought maybe that would be like the chip they used to move on.
I thought we were perfect in our predictions last
year. I just remember being very wrong. I didn't even listen to that part. I just know that I was very wrong about that. I think it's just, he's a year older. It might be his last season, but I think you could swing that around and say it might be his last season. So maybe he wants to really, really go out as on top as he can.
Yep.
I think Montreal, that could mean a deep playoff run for them. Either way, I expect them to be in the playoffs. Not just because of Piatti, but there are going to be games where it is just because of Piatti. And I want to say it's not it is worth noting that it's not as though they've got this incredible defense and they can all just sit back. It's that their defense isn't that great. But if you get 9 and 10 players behind the ball and everybody's sitting back, you're limiting opportunities, you're limiting shooting space, and it kind of allows you to play that defense and then counterattack quickly. And I think that's exactly what Montreal are going to do.
All right, you said that with finality, so we will move on to today's advertiser. Away Days is sponsoring the Total Soccer Show today.
They sure are. I was going through. I am trying to do like a purge of my clothing because I'm realizing just how much clothing I have accumulated.
I'm trying not to do one, but my wife's really pushing for it.
Oh, it is a sort of like I didn't know I had a whole container of like soccer stuff in the back of my closet, and then as soon as I looked at it, I was like, well, I can't get rid of any of this, even though I completely forgot I owned it and had no idea it was here. But I'll say
soccer stuff gets a pass, in my opinion.
Okay, but we have so much of it. I know you do too, that you've accumulated over the years.
Yeah,
and it is sort of like, oh, I don't know this team. Oh, I don't really care that much about this team anymore. I bought that jersey on a whim. We did the mystery kits with Away Days. I don't have any connection to the two teams that we got. I can't get their jerseys are so good.
Yeah,
they're just so pretty and they're so cool looking. And I have worn them just casually sitting around my house, which is not a thing I usually do with jerseys.
So Away Days is an independent soccer clothing brand out of Boston.
Yep.
But they also do the mystery kits. This happens about once every couple of weeks, I want to say. Someone tweets about mystery kits and loads of people suddenly get very interested because it's a concept that people love. If you've never heard it before, basically, mystery kit is you pay, for an adult kit, you pay $25. You don't know what it's going to be, other than it's not going to be a major team, right? It's not going to be Real Madrid. It's not going to be Manchester United. It's not going to be a team like that. It's going to be some team from around the world.
But you might get, I got River, for example.
Yes.
It could still be a very big team that you can then find a way to watch. It's not always going to be...
I got Olympiacos. So, big team in Greece. But, it's not quite mainstream in the way that Real Madrid is.
That is probably true.
Yes. So, you get a team from around the world with a mystery kit.
I can never remember. I couldn't remember if it was Olympiacos or Panathinaikos, and I would never want to make that mistake.
I'm pretty sure it's Olympiacos.
It was.
It's the one Pav supports.
There we go. Yes. And then I got Benfica was my other one.
I also got Real Oviedo, which I was really excited about. Yeah.
This is so good. But especially because we don't. Neither one of us has any strong feeling towards any one particular La Liga team. I think we both cared about Levante when we thought Shaq Moore was going to be playing there. But so to get that jersey, maybe Oviedo's on screen. Maybe you want to stick around and watch them a little bit more. Maybe you go find that jersey and now suddenly you're in. Now you're part of it.
They also, Away Days, as well as the mystery kits and mystery kit subscriptions and mystery kits for kids, they also have all kinds of great T-shirts, hoodies, sweaters, hats, really nice branded clothing.
If you want to do a clothing purge yourself, maybe you don't want more jerseys, they've got the mystery patch option as well. That's a new feature where you can basically get the official patches from different competitions from around Europe and the world. So you could do it that way. So you can suddenly you've got some random competition you didn't even know existed. Now maybe you watch that. And then you find the next Leo Messi, all because of Away Days patches.
And if you'd like to get 15% off, you go to awaydaysfootball.com, which is where all this happens. The link will be in the show notes. Use the discount code TSS. TSS, you'll get 15% off your purchase at Away Days.
Alrighty, so we've come very close to about an hour. We're halfway through.
Wow.
I'm going to say we should maybe keep it moving and try to move it faster, but we probably won't.
I think we're planning to do scouting today. I think maybe we shouldn't.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what time it is. Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
But right now, let's talk New England.
New England Revolution. Okay, so under the coaching reign of Brad Friedel, New England Revolution are this intense pressing team. The way that went in 2018 Part 1 is aggressive pressing that surprised other teams and got results. In Part 2 of 2018, aggressive pressing that surprised no one. New England got carved up as teams played through the press and ran in on goal.
Okay.
That was the story of 2018. 2019, Brad Friedel's had time to kind of build the roster the way he wants it, right? He got rid of Lee Wynn last year. He traded Kellen Rowe in the offseason. So sort of attacking midfielders that maybe aren't known for their pressing, those guys are out.
And from what I read specifically about Kellen Rowe, it sounded like he really, really did not want to press to the extent that, again, I guess he's moved on since then. Do you think that it was part of maybe what went wrong was
he wanted the freedom of the not press.
Exactly. But do you think part of what went wrong for them was that they had these people who were just like, I just don't want to do this, and that sort of infected the locker room? Like, do you expect that attitude to change a little bit?
I mean, I think it's more just Brad Friedel has an approach, and his approach did not necessarily fit all of the players that he had. Okay. So it takes a little while to change the roster over to get the players that are suited to what you want to do.
All right.
Yeah, is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
We'll talk about the new players because they factor into some of my predictions. But I think it's really important if we're going to start judging Brad Friedel as a coach, we're gonna start doing it this year because he theoretically has the team that he thinks is ready to fit his system. Right? If it doesn't, it's kind of Brad Friedel's fault.
So do you think, like, is he on a short leash? Is he going to be on a hot seat at some point, or do you think it is? Given the way the Crafts tend to be when it comes to the New England Revolution, do you think it'll be sort of like, whatever?
They might not even notice.
Well, I guess I mean more so like the way I think of like Ben Olsen at DC, where he had some seasons where they were literally historically bad.
Yeah.
And the front office was just like, nah, you're our guy. Like, we got other stuff we're worried about, so we'll stick with you. Like, I guess I feel like Friedel has maybe that level of freedom.
If it's historically bad, then maybe. But I don't think it's ever going to be quite that bad. All right. You ready to talk about the incoming guys?
Let's do it.
The big signings are Carlos Gil, who is a diminutive number 10, who is not from South America. He's from actual Spain. But he basically fits the model of the Spanish-speaking playmaker that every MLS team needs.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's just weird that he's from Spain.
All right. It's weird that he's out of context. That's an outstanding quote.
Carlos Gil in the past has played for Aston Villa. He was,
Woo! You really got the Spain going.
Aston Villa. He most recently played for Deportivo La Coruña. They kind of ran into trouble where they loaned him, Deportivo did, with a guarantee to buy. But then they got relegated, and Gil wanted out. He also fell out with Seedorf, who was the coach, or Seedorf didn't like him. So I think New England kind of got a bargain. Okay. They got Carlos Gil for $2 million.
That seems like not that much compared to the other fees that have been thrown around.
Yeah, so Spanish playmaker for $2 million. So I guess I don't want to go into too much of the playmaking stuff because it really is what you'd expect, right? Good at dribbling, low center of gravity, has a nice eye for a pass, like your classic short Spanish-speaking number 10 type stuff, right? The interesting thing, I went and watched his defensive play to see if he was this sort of pressing guy who could do what Friedel wanted. The answer is yes.
Okay.
This like little playmaker will not stop running.
Were you watching him in preseason for New England, or were you watching him? He was doing this elsewhere. Okay,
he was doing this for Deportivo La Coruña. He's not necessarily brilliant at the angles with pressing, but he's just willing to always keep running. So my very specific prediction...
can I say that, like, while not ideal, is almost more important because the willingness to just run everywhere, that's a thing that you can't really coach. Yep. You kind of need the player to want to do that.
Yep.
Then you can mold that into the press.
Exactly. He's like Jason Statham in Crank. He just will not stop running. He keeps his heart rate high.
Okay.
My prediction is that Carlos Gil will be the number 10 in Major League Soccer with the most tackles in 2019. The most actual tackles.
I'm pretty sure Jason Statham's character would have failed some performance-enhancing drug tests.
Yes.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
The other key signing is Juan Fernando Caicedo. This is the Colombian striker, another loan to buy. It's kind of what we do layaway in Major League Soccer, right? Loan to buy from Independiente Medellin. He looks super inventive. And I'll give you an example. So back heels, like weird turns in the box, always something unexpected. The one that really caught my eye, there was a ball played into him. He acted like he was going to chest it, and then at the last second, kind of hit the deck and ducked, fooled the defender. The ball went through to a teammate in the box. Caicedo had made a run to receive the return ball. That's how he got a goal. So it's this type of weird inventiveness that I'm going to assume Brad Friedel loves.
I like that a lot.
Yes,
because it took me a long time to realize that when you're watching a player, if you just watch the player make the same kind of routine passes over and over again, it doesn't tell you that much aside from okay, they can take the ball from the left, turn and play it to the right.
Yeah,
terrific with no pressure
good
on.
Good job, buddy.
I guess that's good.
Yeah,
but when you get those little moments of ooh, that's not a thing that normal people normally players try to do. That tells me something about that player. I like that.
So Caicedo has all kinds of weird ideas. So I'm predicting that he's going to win Goal of the Week at least once.
All right.
Because there's going to be one wacky goal.
This is one of those predictions where I'm going to leave it to you to track and see if that one happens.
That's fine. I mean, we'll see it when it happens.
Okay.
Right? So I'm quite excited about the link-up between Carlos Hill, Caicedo up front. I guess Teal Bunbury and Juan Agudelo will be less excited about Caicedo playing up front. But then you've also got Fagundes and Penillo, who were there last season. They'll probably be on the wings. I'm guessing Penillo on the left, Diego Fagundes on the right. You've got quite a nice attacking lineup, New England Revolution. My concern is in defensive midfield.
Yeah.
I think one of the less understood parts of a really good pressing system is to have those defensive midfielders who can sort of hold the space while the farther ahead players press, but then make those key tackles when they happen. Defensive midfielders are Scott Caldwell, Luis Caicedo, no relation. Wilfried Zahibo is maybe the best bet at someone who's going to be really, really impressive. But there's not like a Diego Chara or someone that really stands out of like, oh, that's the defensive midfield guy who's going to destroy opposition teams.
That seems like a way bigger deal. And because it's not like that sexy of a position, it maybe gets kind of overlooked in maybe some of the previews or at least early on of the season. But I do feel like, that's probably going to be the one that Frida will have to, if he hasn't already, that he'll have to really find a solution to that one, or like a dead set for sure solution to that position as early as possible.
A possible #PlayYourKid solution. Do you remember the name Isaac Anking?
No.
So he played briefly for the US Under-20s in the CONCACAF Championship for Tab Ramos. Really, I'm not surprised you don't remember him because he really didn't play that many minutes, but looked really good when he did. So there's a chance that if all these other defensive midfielders fail out, this young American will get his shot in defensive midfield.
All right,
so
okay.
Fingers crossed for that.
So you're saying there's a chance.
I guess. And then one guy that I just feel compelled to mention, even though I don't have a prediction about, Michael Mancienne. Used to play for Wolves, used to play for Nottingham Forest, played for Hamburg for a bit. He's apparently the highest paid defender in Major League Soccer. Joined sort of last season, wasn't brilliant. He might be captain, I'm not entirely sure. But I think there's a lot of pressure on him to perform at centre-back for New England Revolution. So just a name to keep an eye on and see how he does.
All right. That still feels like a decent situation, not like an ideal one, but a decent situation for like a manager who's putting pressure on the players, but there's not necessarily that pressure to win right away from the ownership or front office.
Yeah.
It feels like there's good pressure there. There's good motivation. There's not a looming sense of what might go wrong.
And there is a defined playing style, right? It's just, can Brad Friedel really make it work as opposed to play that playing style but then get beat up for it?
The lowered expectations of bad seasons leading to the preseason. Yeah.
Let's stay in the Northeast.
Sure. Okay. Let's talk NYCFC, who, if I were giving them the tagline, I would say out with the established, in with the possible is how I'm looking at this one right now. So, as has been much discussed, it's kind of out with the veterans. David Villa, I could list stats, right? But David Villa is gone. Yes, I mean, everybody knows what David Villa brings and how good he is. Tommy McNamara, 10 appearances last season, but between McNamara and Villa, those are the last two remaining of the expansioners when NYCFC first came to be.
I believe the phrase is expansioneers.
Okay, there we go. That sounds like a terrible band. Then Jan Galera gone, Rodney Wallace gone, Joe Inge Berget, less important, but still, it's a lot of caps. It's a few goals that they'll need to find a way to replace. And they have done that to some extent. The big headline was the bringing in of Alexandru Mitrita, the 24-year-old Romanian striker, 18 goals in 32 games in the Romanian league. Universitatea Craiova, I think. I don't know. I didn't even write it down. I was just like, I'll just say Romanian
sounds
league.
Right.
That's fine. But $8.5 million, much made of the fact that makes him the third most expensive designated player, I think, in league history. And I think it's going to be a slightly confusing time if you're an NYCFC fan, because when I first heard of him, I heard of him as he's the David Villa replacement. They're bringing in a designated player who's going to be their goal scorer. He's going to lead that line. I don't think that's what Mitrita will be.
Why not?
I think he'll be a left winger for them, and that's where he's started to play this preseason. He had the absurd goal where he kind of cuts inside, shoots from distance, puts it top corner. That seems to be his strength. So I think there are times when he's going to be playing as a center forward. But for example, they've tried Jonathan Lewis as a center forward this preseason. They have other options in there.
Did you just say that that I've forgotten the Romanian player's name.
Mitrita.
Mitrita is going to be playing left wing.
I believe so.
So that's Jonathan Lewis's position.
I mean, they may be roaming around. Maybe he'll play some center forward. Maybe he'll play some left wing. But I have a feeling he plays much more left wing. So they do have other options at striker. There's Tati Castellanos, the 20-year-old Argentine attacker, 8 appearances, 1 goal on loan last season. But all that leads me to my specific prediction, which is that NYCFC will bring in one more known to somewhat known striker. They have their
How are we quantifying this?
They have their 3 DPs, so it's not going to be a DP striker. But I think it's a player. For example, they were very heavily linked last night. It seems like it's not going to happen, but late last night they were heavily linked with a move for Ola Kamara of the LA Galaxy. Instead, it looks like he's going to China. They've been linked with Giuseppe Rossi, who's out of contract. He's been training with Manchester United. But it feels like that's maybe the type of player they're looking for, somebody who can be very mobile, like switch with Mitrita at times, but I think that's a potential issue for them that I think they will try to solve by bringing in one more sort of known quantity. It won't be another like random player from the Romanian league or something like that. Is my expectation.
More like a ticket sales signing.
Yeah, I think so. But it's worth noting. Oh, and then the other key thing there, I was like, why do I have Medina, Tinnerholm, and Tajuri Shradi in my prediction? It's because all of them got their green card, which means NYCFC now have 4 international roster spots. So they also have a little bit more freedom to trade some of those spots potentially for a little bit more money. Then they can maybe TAM somebody for an international player or not. But it feels like they have a little bit of flexibility there to be able to strengthen. But they strengthen elsewhere as well. You've got Keaton Parks coming in, and really,
I was hoping you get to him. I'm excited for Keaton Parks to be playing, basically, because we kept waiting for the Benfica breakthrough, and it just didn't quite happen. Keaton Parks has got a lot to offer.
He does. And he is not going to be a like-for-like replacement for Yangel Herrera, but no. I think he is going to bring plenty to the table. He's big. He's strong. He has experience of like the technical variety from playing for Benfica B. I think he'll be just fine. And the other strange thing when you look at this NYCFC team is, for everything I've just said about the veteran experience they're losing and some of those big names, it's really Mitrita, if he comes in and starts at center forward in a game and Keaton Parks starts in place of Yangel Herrera, that's it. Like, it's basically they're returning 9 of 11 starters. So it's not like they're going to be going through this sort of like, we've got to reestablish ourselves and figure it out, unless Dome Torrent can't figure it out. And that is the only other question mark
That's
I have.
That's the big question, right? He's just not Patrick Vieira.
It has felt to me like...
He's Man City's set-piece scout.
Yeah. I mean, but it feels to me like a thing that a lot of the previews are not really wanting to engage because they don't want to be very wrong. And so it ends up being like, Dome Torrent, he's got a full preseason. Last season was okay, even though it wasn't really at the end of last season. And it feels like nobody wants to go on a limb and say Torrent is going to be sacked. I'm not going to do that either. But I do think he will be on the hot seat very quickly if things don't get off to a good start, because now he's had the time to kind of implement his system and play the way he wants to play. And if it doesn't work, then he's going to be to blame.
Ready to move on to another New York team, or have you got more to say on NYCFC?
Just one more big thing. Well, not even a big thing, but Juan Pablo Torres, 19-year-old American central midfielder, signed from Lokeren in Belgium. He does not have MLS experience. That is kind of a recurring theme for everyone they signed. Keaton Parks,
but he has Belgian league experience, right? So
he does, but he's also really motivated because he wants to be in that U20 World Cup squad, and he wasn't getting any time at Lokeren, and it didn't seem like he was moving to that next level was going to be in consideration. So this feels like a very smart signing by NYCFC to get a player who wanted to move, wants to prove himself, is content to like make sure that he's in the squad and around the squad. He doesn't necessarily have to start, but I think he's going to get minutes this season, and I think he'll be a very key player for NYCFC by the end of the year.
I think weirdly NYCFC has become a team to watch for American youngsters, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to get to see Keaton Parks spraying passes around and doing nice things with the ball like we know that he can. We're going to get to see Torres, who we've heard about before, but we've never been able to see much of. There's a possibility that Jonathan Lewis finally has his breakthrough year. If not now, then never, right? After that, the January camp performance. And there's also, I've read stuff about Joe Scally, the young right back, that he might get his shot this year as well. So
I mean, I would be surprised.
James Sands as well.
I would be surprised if it's not Tinnerholm at right back for most of the season, but it's a long season. Maybe there's some injuries.
But maybe like George Bello last year, where he just gets a few minutes here and there.
That makes sense to me. And probably the same thing for Ben Sweat. I think Ronald Matarrita, the Costa Rican, will likely be the left back, but as is so often the case with him, he is injured right now, so Ben Sweat will probably start as the left back on opening day.
All right. Ready for New York Red Bulls?
Oh, and Alex Ring will get this amount of mentions, but probably deserves more. There we go. Yes, I'm ready for the Red Bulls.
All right, so Red Bulls obviously lost to Atlanta United in the Eastern Conference final last year, but by some measures were the best team in Major League Soccer last year, right? Supporter Shield winners, for example. They've lost Tyler Adams. There is that. And I think...
That's a big that.
It is, right? There's a big question of... I heard this on lots of previews. No one's quite sure how important it is to the Red Bulls pressing game that Tyler Adams is gone. Because I would argue that he is in many, many ways irreplaceable because no one has that same level of energy, right?
Yeah. I mean, or if not, like if somebody does... then they don't have the technical ability or the understanding of the position or the versatility to change it up. That's a tough one. That's a real tough one.
It's something else, right? But at the same time, Red Bull's going to do the same thing, right? Chris Armas is going to do the Red Bulls pressing system that like he was in charge of last year, but he's basically the Red Bulls thing. So there's just been no change from the Red Bulls in terms of playing style, as I understand it. The only big change is that they've signed a striker who's not Bradley Wright Phillips.
All right.
And I really want to talk about Matthias Jorgensen. Yes. So there is limited footage of Matthias Jorgensen. He's a Danish centre forward. He's only 18 years old. But I've got this feeling that I just trust the Red Bull system, that if they find a talented young player, or if they say they found a talented young player, they found a talented young player, right? So the very little I could see of Matthias Jorgensen, he's a big dude. He's like 6'1" at 18 years old. He is fast and he keeps running in behind. And I've got this feeling that however many... He'll play some games, right? He'll definitely be part of the Red Bulls first team. They've paid like $2 or $3 million for him, which is a lot in Major League Soccer, right? He's not going to replace Bradley Wright Phillips, but I think he might either sub in for him occasionally, sub in for him to give Bradley Wright Phillips 20 minutes off here and there, maybe a game off if he doesn't want to travel, because BWP is like in his mid-30s now, right? So you've got to start maybe looking at resting his legs up a little bit. Could also be that they're thinking about maybe going out with a two-striker system.
All right.
Once or twice, right?
I would be all right with that.
So I think Jorgensen's going to get some minutes. He is going to get, here's my very specific prediction, Matthias Jorgensen will get 7 goals in Major League Soccer in 2019.
He'll pull an Altidore?
Yeah. So Altidore was limited because of injuries.
Yeah.
Matthias Jorgensen will be somewhat limited just because he's so young, but I think he'll get enough minutes and get enough goals.
All right.
7 goals. I think that's a lofty target, but I'm setting it high because I've just got faith in the Red Bulls scouting system.
Not to like tip your hand for the Top Draw Soccer Show this week, but is Jorgensen one of the like young players that you're most excited about this season?
I haven't done my research yet, but he could be. He would be if I could find more footage than the very limited footage that I've seen.
All right.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what the Red Bulls are looking at.
Right?
What they've gone out and found.
They've got the next level of Y Scout.
Yeah.
A
global network of clubs.
Bull Scout.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Also, we're talking about with New York Red Bulls. I think one of the strengths of the Red Bulls is the centre-back pairing. Tim Parker and Aaron Long allow the New York Red Bulls to play that pressing game because both of them are pretty quick, pretty smart. It's quite hard to get in behind them. They're not scared of being left exposed when the rest of the team presses because they can handle it when the opposition team sends the ball the other way. And Aaron Long especially, I think is really good on the ball.
They do a really good job, the Red Bulls, of always making sure to have like 1 or 2 Americans in there that you're like, ooh, yeah, I want to watch what they do. And Tim Parker and Aaron Long, even though the center backs are 2 that I enjoy watching just to see like, okay, yeah, they should be in that conversation about national team.
Another guy worth watching is Kaku.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Kaku off-season story?
Yeah, how has that gone?
It's gone is the one positive, right? So Club America, we're in for Kaku. He wanted to go.
He did.
Club America bid, I think, $6 or $7 million. New York Red Bulls said, how about $12 million? Herrera himself said, let's not be taken advantage of here. And the deal kind of fell through. But then, so Kaku didn't say anything, but Kaku's agent, who, I'm sorry, his name I can't remember, was talking up a storm, saying that it was, I think, unfair and disrespectful, and that Kaku should be earning a lot more than $700,000 a year. And a player's career is short; he should make more money. He didn't get a new contract. He didn't get the move to Club America, but he did play in that CONCACAF Champions League game and got an assist for Daniel Roya and looked like his old self.
Yeah.
So my guess is that Kaku is going to be fine, but will either actually get a move somewhere in the middle of the season, like maybe someone will come in with big money for him, or will get himself a new contract. Yeah. Maybe an improved contract with Major League Soccer / New York Red Bulls. So that's my other very specific prediction, is that Kaku's situation will change, either an improved contract or an actual move.
I hesitate to sing the praises of like giant globally reaching corporations, but that is the benefit to having the kind of network and system that Red Bull have, which is that you can sort of be like, nah, we're not selling this person. Like, we're not a smaller club where we need that money, and that represents a significant amount for us. Mm-hmm. No, we can just keep the player.
The only cheap sales are when we go to RB Leipzig.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Then free is
Tyler
fine.
Adams was worth more than he went for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So actually, I don't have that much else to say about New York Red Bulls, weirdly, because it's just like we know what they're going to do, right? And they're so effective at it. I would even argue they're so effective at it that other teams are thinking we should try that as well. Not least Brad Friedel in New England is all about that intense press because he's seen it work for the Red Bulls. Philadelphia Union, when we talk about them later, they're all about maybe copying the Red Bulls. So I just think it's a really successful thing. It's going to be missing Tyler Adams, but gaining Matthias Jorgensen. Yeah. I still think they'll be great next season, even without Tyler Adams.
I mean, and then you've already mentioned the center backs. You've got Kamar Lawrence. You've got Luis Robles, who probably should get more looks for the national team. Like
Rio has won me over as well.
There you go.
Back. I used to think he was terrible. Now I think he's great.
So you've got. Which is not, like what I'm about to say is not the case for most teams in Major League Soccer, certainly not the case for most teams in the East, but you've got a settled defense. You've got a back four that know each other, have played together, have that experience. You've got a goalkeeper who's been there. It does feel like a team who, because Tyler Adams left and they're not splashing a ton of money, they're not signing Juan Pablo Angel or Rafa Marquez or something like that, you don't have that level of like, they're retooling.
They'd be doing really badly if they signed both of them this year.
Yeah, that wouldn't work so well, especially from a like U.S. federal regulators situation. But yeah, when you look at it through that lens of like Kaku seems to be settled, they brought in young, exciting player, the Bradley Wright Phillips, defense, goalkeeper. Like, yeah, that's a Red Bulls team that you would expect to be right back near the top of the table.
All right. So, yeah, we expect that to happen.
We sure do. We also expect to say thank you to today's sponsor, Dollar Shave Club. Darryl, would you like to say thank you?
Thank you, Dollar Shave Club.
What would you like to thank them for specifically? Which product have you enjoyed the most?
Genuinely all of them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we talked about this on the show yet, but Dollar Shave Club sent us a goodies box, basically, of all like a good sampling of all the different subscription packages you can get from Dollar Shave Club.
I attacked that thing like Gollum trying to get the ring. I was like, this is mine. I want this. I want this.
I have been slowly working my way through all the Dollar Shave goodies. Mm-hmm. I guess a good way to do this is to maybe talk about our favorites so far.
My wife has constantly told me that you don't need to shampoo and condition your hair every day. She is probably right. She tends to know these things. I still used to do it anyway because if I have longer hair, it's all like ringlets and it gets all dreadlocked.
Yeah.
But I have stopped washing it every day because I don't want to run out of the Dollar Shave Club shampoo. I like it that much.
I've been enjoying the prep scrub. So, as you know, I don't shave that regularly. What I do then sometimes get is the occasional ingrown hair, which if you ever had is a real problem, right? But I've been using the prep scrub. You know, it's got like the exfoliant type stuff in, just to work into my stubble to make sure that everything stays nice and fresh. The prep scrub and then the facial cleanse. I'm a big fan of both of those things.
All right. The facial cleanse and the prep scrub. I like the facial cleanse as well. And then, as I said on the show a while back and got made fun of by a listener, you know who you are. I think I said, like, the toothbrush fits in your mouth and it's really exciting. And he texted me to say, did you just try to sell me a toothbrush by saying it fits in your mouth? And what I should have said more specifically was, like, I was just blown away by the angle of it. And this is one of the few times, as I said, my wife is usually right about these things. I got her with the toothbrush. She was like, all right, yeah, I'll throw mine away. And she used the Dollar Shave Club toothbrush. We did get multiple ones. We're not sharing, I promise. But it's got this, like, it's got a very extreme bend to it so that you can, like, easily get to your back molars, which is where you tend to have issues if you're not a very good brusher, as I am not. So to have the brush that makes it that much easier to access all your teeth is what I perhaps should have said previously.
The oral care kit also comes with toothpaste, peppermint toothpaste, in a nice... I don't know how to describe this. It's not the same shape as a regular toothpaste tube.
It's not, and it's not the same color either. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just makes it all feel a little bit different.
It sure does. Yeah. The Super Bay, I think it is Super Bass, something like that.
Yep.
There you go.
So the good thing about Dollar Shave Club is once you sign up, you can sign up for a starter kit. Once you sign up, they will regularly ship you replacement products so that you don't run out of toothpaste. You don't run out of shampoo. You don't run out of prep scrub. It will. You won't get to the bottom and be like, oh no, I've got to go to the store. it will be shipped to your door. So you can just go to your mailbox, take it out, and you're good to go.
You don't even have to leave your house, which we already talked about Chicago a while ago, but when it was like negative 18 degrees, I bet you didn't want to go outside or have to make a run to like the local corner store to get that replacement toothpaste or shaving cream or whatever. With Dollar Shave Club, you don't even have to go outside.
And if you'd like to try any of the starter sets that Dollar Shave Club offer, you can get a starter set for just $5, like the Orc Hair Kit, for example, for just $5. After that, the restock box ships regular-sized products at regular price. So what are you waiting for? Get your starter set for $5 right now at dollarshaveclub.com/TSS. That's dollarshaveclub.com/TSS.
Thank you very much to Dollar Shave Club. Let's get to the tail end, the home stretch of our MLS Eastern Conference preview, which leads me to talk about Orlando City SC. And I think I'm approaching this from I want Orlando fans to have reason to believe. Yes, I want them to be...
They're a passionate bunch,
yes.
And the team hasn't been doing well.
It is not. Worst team in the East, second worst team in Major League Soccer last season, fewest goals scored, most conceded, and the most conceded in a single season in Major League Soccer history.
Ouch.
A historically bad defense, the majority of which is gone. They've gotten rid of a lot of that defense because it is James O'Connor still there. He took over for the second half of last season. Things didn't change that much. He seems very focused on the idea that if he's able to really have his preseason and implement his system, things will be better. That I think means...
They all say that, though.
They sure do. I think one thing that it means is that you're going to see them in a back three this season. I would say it's like a 3-4-1-2 as opposed to a 3-5-2 because I think that one is going to be Sasha Kljestan. I think he is a little bit older. He doesn't have like the mobility that maybe he's had in seasons past. So I think having him as sort of that just dedicated number 10, the playmaker, I think that suits him best. Then you have Rosell and Mendez, who they've brought in the offseason because they lost Yotun. He went to Cruz Azul. And that, I think, maybe will be a big issue for them. But having those two midfielders lock it down with Sasha Kljestan ahead, I think that gives them a bit more midfield stability. And then obviously Nani will give them some goal scoring.
So where's Nani going to play?
My guess is that he'll be in that like 3-4-1-2. I think he'll be one of the two, and he'll sort of have a little bit more freedom to pop up wherever he wants to. And then Dom Dwyer partnering him a bit more of a kind of like standard number 9 target forward.
Yeah,
that would be my guess.
That kind of makes sense.
There we go. Yeah. I'm glad my thoughts kind of make sense to you.
I'm a believer in Nani. I think he's going to do really well in Major League Soccer.
I am not a Nani believer.
I know you're not.
Yeah, and I think he will do really well. In fact, my prediction is that Nani will score more goals than Dom Dwyer did last season. He got 13 in 2018.
Yeah.
And get as many or more assists as Chris Muller, who got 7. He was not their leading assist leader. That was Yotun. He got 10.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're going to score that many goals. So I'm going to say he'll basically do better than both of their forwards did last season in goals and assists.
But good numbers for Nani.
Yes, I think so. And I should say, it's not that I'm not a believer. It's just I have never been impressed with him going back, or I've never been like consistently impressed with him going back to when he first signed for Manchester United. And I do think there's certainly reason for concern if you're an Orlando City fan. It's exciting to have a known DP. People know who Nani is, and he potentially could be this kind of breakout player who's unplayable and very good. It could also be the case that he's kind of reached that point in his career where he's not as motivated or things didn't go right and maybe he's just kind of out of sorts at Sporting CP.
I think he'll be into it. I think we're looking at a Wayne Rooney type situation.
I mean, that's what I'm... Again...
Best visiting nanny since Mary Poppins.
I mean, she's real good. That's a big cliff. That's a big cliff. But I'll say I think that's why I went back to, or like in the beginning I said I want Orlando fans to have reason to believe, and that's why rather than lean on like, I've never really backed Nani, I'm going to back him this time, and I'm going to say he's going to have a very good season. I don't know if Orlando will have a very good season. I think they'll have a better one.
Yeah.
I don't know if that means playoffs. I think it probably does not, but I think that they've retooled in enough positions that Orlando fans should be excited about this season.
All right.
Or more so than they have been, at least.
Anything else to add on Orlando?
I mean, yeah, there are some issues, certainly aside from what I've already talked about. There's going to be a goalkeeper change. Joe Bendick's option was declined. As I said before, he's now in Columbus. Brian Rowe is the likely new starter, but the reaction to that signing was, really? Okay, I guess that's good. And they've got...
Didn't Brian Rowe get that one U.S. national team call-up when Bruce Arena had everybody in camp?
Which I believe everybody said was hey, you played for me, the Galaxy. Good job last season.
You're in town.
Mm-hmm. But there's other names that, like, do you remember Greg Ranjitsingh, who played for Louisville City? Mm-hmm. He is with Orlando City. He could be the starter. So I think there'll be some turnover at
goalkeeper. Oh, because O'Connor was the Louisville coach, right? So, yeah.
You got it. There we go. Look at you putting these things together.
Oh, yeah.
And then, as I said, Yoshimar Yotun, he'll be theoretically replaced by Sebastian Mendez, who will start in central midfield. That is one where they're taking a proven entity out of the equation, probably their best all-around player, or their most consistent player last season.
Yotun was the Peruvian, right?
Correct, exactly. Yeah. Yes, now playing in Mexico. So I'll also, from a neutral Orlando perspective, I'll also be wanting to see how Mendez does if he is that other central midfielder alongside Rosell.
Okay. Should we move on to the Philadelphia Union?
I suppose we should.
I'm just realizing all the pressing is happening in the Northeast, because that Philadelphia Union apparently are going to be this big pressing team in 2019. It's a big change from the possession football that Jim Curtin had them playing last year. And this is all part, I'm pretty sure I'm right here, it's all part of the Ernst Tanner takeover.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this is the big change that Philadelphia Union have made last September, right? When Ernie Stewart, who was the GM or the director of football, became the GM for the US men's national team, Philadelphia Union replaced him with Ernst Tanner.
They only want people they can nickname Big Ern.
I guess that might be it. Or it might be that he has 24 years of experience as technical directors with European clubs.
I think they're both equally likely.
That's probably true. So his most recent job was with Red Bull Salzburg, which kind of tips me off that Philly really are trying to do a Red Bull type thing. You know what I'm saying? Bring in a GM, a director of football who's into pressing. Then we use our youth teams like Bethlehem Steel and all that to bring players through. I think they're following the New York Red Bulls model.
Again, though, I think the New York Red Bulls model works because they have the global system where they can identify players and move them around. Steel. Yeah, exactly.
It could also work as a commitment to youth and a commitment to style of play. The interesting thing to me is that Ernst Tanner comes in, and there was
the reason why I responded the way I did is because that fired off a warning sign to me. I'm like, they're going to do the same thing without nearly the support and infrastructure, and kind of hoping it works.
Yeah, well, actually, but it'd be nice to see if it can work on a local level with, again, Bethlehem Steel and the youth teams and the development academy, as opposed to leaning on the resources that exist in Leipzig and Salzburg and everywhere else around the world.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
So it'd be an interesting experiment, put it that way. So Jim Curtin, last year, the head coach, played this nice possession soccer. So there was a thought that when Tanner came in, that he would look at Curtin, 39-year-old coach who likes possession soccer, and be like, yeah, you're not my guy. Apparently, Tanner's really impressed with Curtin. They gave him a new contract. It may have been just Curtin's willingness to say, I'll do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Or it may be that he had really nice ideas about pressing football. I guess we'll find out in 2019.
We sure will. Or that he was pliant and happy to do what he was told.
Yes. We don't know which one. We don't know which one. One of the big changes will be the shape. Jim Curtin's shape last year was the 4-2-3-1. It's now going to be a 4-4-2 diamond. The important part of that, I think, for my prediction that's coming up, is that there's going to be two strikers. One of them will not be CJ Sapong because he's been traded.
He's been traded to Chicago, which I
think that's a big loss.
I failed to mention that in the Chicago preview, actually. Because that happened, I think, last night or maybe the day before. But it was new enough that I kind of was like, oh yeah, I'll remember to look at CJ Sapong later, and then did not. So yes, and I think that will be very good in terms of giving them someone to spell Nemanja Nikolic, but also someone to partner Nemanja Nikolic on occasion. It gives Chicago another look, another wrinkle.
And if you tweet it out during the Chicago Fire preview, it's not too late to go back and delete it.
Yep. There we go. We're going to get one or two.
Yes, we are. So I really like CJ Sapong. I like his energy. I like the way that he sort of is willing to, to drag wide and get involved and always be available. I don't fully know why they traded him, but the big beneficiary is going to be Fafa Picault, who is a striker but was mostly stuck on the wing, right? So my prediction is that Fafa Picault in 2019 will have his best ever MLS goal scoring year.
All right. And that's because he basically has less competition? Do you expect
less competition, and because he'll play centre forward and not on the wing?
Okay. Yeah. But it's not necessarily that he's been an undervalued asset, or you think that he's going to raise his game to that next level?
I mean, he's been undervalued in that he's not getting to play his favourite position, right? But he still managed 7 goals in 2017, 10 goals in 2018. So I'm going to expect him to go maybe 12 goals in 2019. Fafa Picault up front.
Okay. And do you think that gets him some U.S. national team looks too?
Maybe not, because there's still a lot of guys around. He's 28. I keep thinking of him as young, but he's 28 now.
Oh, yeah, right.
It's a bit late maybe to be taking another look at Fafa Picault, unless he's lights out and scoring a bunch of goals. We shall see. The other big acquisition, Marco Fabian. Marco Fabian is going to be a Philadelphia Union player. It still feels weird to say it.
Why does it still feel weird?
It just does. It just feels weird to say it because I just thought of him as this very talented Mexican guy who was then playing in the Bundesliga.
That Wells Fargo commercial?
And that was that Wells Fargo commercial. And now at 29 years old, he's going to be playing for the Philadelphia Union. And I have all kinds of questions about this because, in my opinion, if you are building a pressing team, you don't sign Marco Fabian. He is.
Let's talk about that because I can't claim to have nearly as much familiarity as you do. He's not a player that I've ever really. Like not necessarily hasn't registered, but it's just not a player that when I think Mexico, I'm like, oh, that's what I'm scared of. So let's talk about Marco Fabian for a minute.
So I'm speaking with some knowledge, but not great knowledge, so I might be wrong. But I've always thought of him as a luxury type of player, capable of unleashing brilliance, especially from distance, like long shots or long through balls. Really talented, creative player. But kind of a luxury player in the sense that he doesn't offer you a load of defensive work rate, for example.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about that,
yeah.
Philly.
So it seems like an odd choice to sign Marco Fabian, who's really the face of the team, as in he's the most famous player on the team, for a system that I don't think he fits, unless I'm wrong. I'm willing to be proven wrong by Ernst Tanner and the Philadelphia Union, but that doesn't quite make sense to me. And yet, I'll still be tuning in to watch Marco Fabian.
Yeah, that makes sense. But
also 2 years of on and off back injuries. So there's that as well.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, though, like the pressing system, it has to be done with everybody on board. And you can't have it be everybody else runs around so that Marco Fabian is free to do what he wants. Like, that's not how that works. So, yes, it will be fascinating to see if he embraces it and how good he is in a pressing system and how good Philly are in a pressing system that maybe Jim Curtin didn't necessarily want to utilize.
We'll find out.
We shall.
The other quick prediction, it involves the youngsters. I think the diamond shape, which has overlapping fullbacks, it's really going to suit Matthew Real. Who's a player we like for the U20s and we like playing left back for Philadelphia Union. So he's going to get a lot of freedom to go forward and attack because the width will come from the fullbacks. Another actual prediction, Mark McKenzie and Austin Trusty, the two centre-backs, will have a year of highlights and lowlights.
Yep.
Because pressing means these two young centre-backs are going to be exposed, right? It's also going to mean that they're going to be doing a lot of last-ditch tackling. Some of it's going to look really good because they're both really talented and they make great last-ditch tackles. Sometimes they're going to miss.
That's a really great shout because it was already the case that like Trusty was kind of covering for McKenzie on occasion and was sort of keeping an eye on him the way I was talking about Steve Birnbaum, maybe having to do with DC.
Yeah.
So now that maybe Trusty will be having to do some different things, maybe he won't have the time to be able to make sure McKenzie's doing stuff. Yeah, I'm with you. It could be an up and down year.
And they're just both going to be a bit more exposed than they were before. So yeah, you're going to see that. You're going to see them doing a lot of last ditch defending where they'll shine sometimes, but you'll also see them in some highlight reels where they're getting burned.
Are they still unknowingly going to find a way to beat DC United whenever we go see them play?
It's very possible. It's very possible. So there's your Philadelphia Union preview.
Alrighty.
Dupe.
Which I believe means that I will close out the Eastern Conference preview with some Toronto FC talking.
Some Toronto FC talking.
Yeah, and Toronto fans, get ready because you're probably not going to like what I have to say. So I've talked about a few things already that inform my sort of pessimism about this team. Tim Bezbachenko leaving, Ali Curtis has come in. He's going to be the new GM, but similar to what we talked about with the Crew, it doesn't feel like they've kind of had the time to really look at this squad and figure out exactly what they need, as evidenced by the fact that Sebastian Giovinco, gone, not yet replaced.
And he left under a bit of a cloud as well, right?
Correct.
Where it was basically they didn't want to pay him. They didn't want to give him good money for the new contract, so he was like, all right,
which
I'm off to the Middle East.
I see both sides. Like you want to keep him happy. He is such an important player and has been for them that it would be nice to still have him. Me as a neutral, I like being able to watch Sebastian Giovinco.
Yeah, he's a joy to watch, right?
He wanted a lot of money for like a 4 or 5 year deal. Given his age, that's a lot to commit to a player, and it kind of ties you to him no matter what happens. So I see why Toronto wouldn't want to do that. But I think knowing who he is and the fact that you're basically losing one of, if not the best players to ever play in Major League Soccer, if you haven't replaced him, it's sort of it is a warning sign, I think, for Toronto fans. It certainly is for me, and I do think they're going to struggle. I also think, here's prediction number one, that Bobby Warshaw and Matt Doyle are going to have a lengthy debate about whomever Toronto bring in to replace Gio.
There is talk of a possible deal. I can't remember the player's name that's happening in the future.
Yeah, you're referring to, I'm assuming, Alejandro Pozuelo, the 27-year-old Spanish striker from Genk. I definitely thought, given the kind of drama around his transfer. Genk don't want him to leave. He had a buyout clause. Toronto met it. Then Genk were like, oh, no, that was the buyout clause for the summer. It's not the summer yet, so you can't have him. Now he may end up buying himself out because he has that clause in there too. Because they want him now. But with all that said, I think he is more of a Victor Vasquez replacement, whom they also lost. It's Victor Vasquez, I think, was the top scorer in the Belgian league, maybe a season or two before he moved to Toronto. So it's kind of that similar level. And this is Pozuelo is the captain of Genk. He is their, I think, leading scorer. I believe they're top of the table. So he's a really important player to them. But I don't think he's a Sebastian Giovinco replacement, nor is Terrence Boyd. So
did you see his penalty?
Yes, and I saw his apology. Actually, I think you told me about his apology, so then I went and found it.
The apology was good, right? The apology was like, the penalty wasn't good enough, performance wasn't good enough, I'm going to work hard, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah. It's a paraphrase, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but still, you're apologizing for missing a bad penalty. It can be as nice as it is, it's still not great.
And if you haven't seen this, it looks even worse than it is because of the stadium. The stadium where Boyd put this penalty over the bar has a big concrete wall at the back.
Yep.
So rather than just going into the fans when he put it over the bar, it hits the wall and bounces down. You hear the thud, the thud of disappointment.
The thud of disappointment. All right. So I've started negative. I'm going to keep it going, though, because my other prediction, and this is a bigger one that I haven't seen, I don't think many people talk about, but I've seen Toronto fans talking about it. So that's kind of where this is coming from. Every year we do have a quote-unquote big-name coach get the sack. I think it's going to be Greg Vanney because I don't think he's going to turn this team around. It feels to me like a situation from what I've seen from written by fans and from comments made by fans and specific points made about players like Marquis Delgado, who is still getting looks at national team level. He's getting called into camp. Greg Berhalter had good things to say about him, but then you see him play for Toronto, and it's not that same level. He just doesn't look like he has that motivation. The CONCACAF Champions League being a prime example in that drubbing away in Panama, that it just nobody looked really up for it, and that's what you have to be in what is still preseason, but a competitive fixture. And so it has led, I think, to a lot of speculation that maybe this team has just reached that point where they're like, we won MLS Cup with this coach, he's been here for a while, maybe it's time for things to change. And so I think the first month or two of this season will tell us right away that if Toronto are struggling and at the bottom of the table, I think Greg Vanney is done because I think they've got to do something because of the perception of Toronto right now with Giovinco leaving, with Bradley and Altidore edging close or getting older and up there. It's not quite that same bloody big deal Toronto of years past. So
Ali Curtis also has previous firing coaches. Remember he fired Mike Petke to bring in Jesse Marsch?
There you go. And it's not just that Greg Vanney is a bad coach or anything like that. It's also that Toronto haven't really helped themselves. They got rid of Nick Hagglund. They brought in Laurent Simon, who was expected to be the one that was going to sort of anchor that defense and make them look way better. He looked very bad in that CONCACAF Champions League game, and they haven't retooled other than that. So it just feels like there's not much strengthening. They have brought in a goalkeeper. I think they signed him last night or the day before. So Alex Bono will have a little bit of a challenge for that starting spot, but it doesn't feel like they moved up enough to make me, again, who they probably don't care, but to make me feel confident enough to say this team is going to be demonstrably better. It would be tough to be worse than they were last year, but I think it's going to be a rough start for Toronto.
So the weird thing is going to be you're going to have Michael Bradley and Josie Altidore, two of the most famous players on the US men's national team. If it goes badly for Toronto, it won't make sense for them to be there. It kind of made sense when they were working towards winning MLS Cup. And you're like, okay, Bradley and Altidore are playing in MLS when maybe they should be overseas, but it's the best team in the league, which it was for a year and a half or so. It's going to feel weird if it's a terrible team.
Yeah, I mean,
and I wouldn't be surprised if they look at making a move.
I mean, that's why I for a second thought that Josie would fit going to NYCFC. I believe he's from New York, but
at least New Jersey.
Okay, yeah. Well, that works. They're still New York, right? You can call them that if you're the Red Bulls. All right, I'll leave it there before we get more mean tweets. But that's just not going to happen because they have the 3 DPs, NYCFC specifically. So I'm talking about they've got the 3 DPs. So and I think he's making way too much to be able to pay him down. It would be a Gio Dos Santos situation. Although maybe that will end up working, and maybe you'll be able to have 4 DPs. Who knows? But so I think that I thought the exact same thing. One of my predictions was going to be that Josie gets traded, but it would require a massive investment from whomever took him. So that could be the kind of obstacle there. Bradley, I don't know. Maybe Bradley wants to move. Maybe he just wants to kind of retire in Toronto and be in Toronto.
That could happen. I hear Cabbagetown is very nice. I've never been. All right, does that conclude Eastern Conference preview?
I think so. I mean, I feel weird ending on such a negative note, but as I said, this Eastern Conference is more wide open than I expected it to be, and there's a lot of teams who, when you look at, you think like I still, even with how bad last season was, I was still like, yeah, but it's Toronto. Like, they're going to make the playoffs. Come on, they've got to find a way.
Yeah,
and I kept doing that all last season
for a long time.
Exactly,
yeah.
And so at a certain point, you've got to really look at them with on a deeper level, and when you do, it doesn't look like they're going to be that much better.
All right, we're an hour and 45 in. Do you want to do scouting, or should we save that for another day?
We may have to save that for another day.
Let's save scouting
I was supposed to leave the office about 10 minutes ago.
Oh, yes, you are. Okay. So on that note, I will say thank you, everybody, for listening, especially if you've listened all the way through. I suspect some people would have just listened to the part for the team they support.
Not if we don't put in timestamps.
We will put in timestamps. Thank you to SeatGeek, to Away Days, and to Dollar Shave Club for sponsoring today's show. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Yeah, you're fine.
Listeners, thank you.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will talk to you again tomorrow with the Western Conference preview.